Good morning. This is Member Spotlight presented by Rising Coaches, the largest coaching tree in basketball where your logo or level doesn't define your importance. For just $15 a month, you can become a member of Rising Coaches for more relationships, development, and opportunities at risingcoaches.com. I'm your guest host for today's episode, Blake Cochran, head men's basketball coach at Fort Scott Community College. And today's guest is Coach Andrew May. Coach, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Coach May. Originally here from Utah. I'm currently the head coach at Snow College, a Division I junior college back in Utah, located in Ephraim, which is about 2 hours south of Salt Lake City. So, yeah, just super excited to be on here. Coaching's a passion of mine, obviously, and just appreciate the opportunity to chat with you and help out any rising coaches that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach, congrats on, a great year. I saw you guys beat the number one and number two teams in the country this year. Do you want to talk about the year in a whole and what took you guys to get to that point?
Yeah, we finished 20-12, and like you said, we were the only team to beat the number one team in the country. They were undefeated at that point, and we beat them on their home floor in the conference semifinals, which was great. But the season was, I mean, definitely our first season as the head coach in junior college. I learned a ton of things, but it was a long experience of learning and growing, as myself and as a team. We definitely made strides throughout the season and overcame a bunch of adversity and challenges like everybody faces during the year. But it was definitely a great opportunity for me to get my first opportunity at the college level to lead a program. I had been doing that, helping a coach, in one form or another. I've worked with a ton of great head coaches and in different capacities, from director of operations at the Division I level to an assistant coach and recruiting coordinator at the Division I level, to being able to run my own program here. But it was just a great experience. Our guys throughout the season developed some resilience through the adversity that we experienced, and really came together down the stretch of the season. So I mean, definitely as a coach, I mean, I kept a journal the whole season. There were so many things that I learned, and I'm excited to apply those things to this next season of the stuff that I learned. So hopefully we can incorporate them quicker.
Yeah, no doubt. Speaking of some of the different places you've been, why do you coach? Why do you want to help young men and younger coaches and everything moving forward?
Yeah, so my dad was a coach. He played professionally and coached overseas some, and then coached high school, coached junior college, coached college. I mean, he had a ton of experience, and so for me growing up, that's kind of what I was immersed in. And because of my relationship with my dad, I mean, I followed him around. I went to practices. I soaked in a whole bunch of stuff that normal little kids shouldn't know and understand about coaching. And I actually got my first coaching opportunity when I was about 12 years old. My dad couldn't make a summer league game because of another summer league game conflict, so he had me go coach like his varsity team. And my mom was on the bench with me, which was great. She was the adult there, but I actually knew all the plays and did all the subbing, and so it was awesome. But the reason I coach is just because I have a passion for building teams and developing leaders and skilled basketball players. And I do that by teaching them principles that will help them in their lives, that transcend the sport. And for me, basketball has always been the prism by which I see the world. And so, like, watching basketball, learning about things in basketball, working on a team, there's just so many translatable skills to life. I heard somebody say, the two most important things kids need to learn growing up is how to work with other people and then how to problem solve. And to me, as a coach, like, that's our lives in basketball: is how do we work with other people successfully? How do we, as a team, understand each other's needs, be able to respect each other, but also hold each other accountable, all of those things. And then, like, how do we overcome adversity when there's challenges? When do we need to persist, or when do we need to pivot and do something different? And so all of those lessons are just so valuable for kids, and they've been valuable in my life. And that's why I do it, as I just love sharing those with kids. And helping them do those things, and then helping them with opportunities in the future. I mean, that's one of the primary roles of junior college, is helping these guys get opportunities in the future. But I do spend time helping them get opportunities, but I would say I spend way more time helping prepare them for those opportunities. I think guys, no matter where they go, if they have the skill sets, they have the leadership ability, they have the experience. When they go into those opportunities, they're going to be able to make the most of it. And so, yeah, I just love coaching for sure.
Yeah, no, that's good. Speaking of, you know, trying to help those guys develop and become better men, how have you helped them do that, and how have you helped yourself develop as a coach?
Yeah. So helping them, for sure, it starts with my own personal leadership. I got to lead myself before I lead these guys. And so my investment in trying to become the best coach that I can be is a very like consistent thing. It's something that, to me, we can go to a clinic and learn some critical things. We can watch a YouTube video. We can listen to a podcast. We can see rising coaches, and all of those are little drops in the bucket of becoming a better coach. But there's no replacing just that consistent passion for rethinking what you know about basketball, reevaluating and considering new options, new opportunities. And to me, that really shows your passion for coaching, is when you're willing to dive into the details of every aspect of the game, from recruiting to player retention to X's and O's, how we're going to guard ball screens. I mean, all of those are aspects that make a good coach. And so I would say for me, personal development wise, is there's just a consistent um, passion and curiosity that comes with trying to understand how I can improve. And I think coaches, a lot of times, we, for sure, for me, I was deliberate about trying to connect with high level coaches that are already doing at the Division 1 level. So that, like, to me, is the core, is can you connect, or NBA level or whatever, high school level, that are just super successful, connecting yourself with them and working closely with them, not just hearing them speak one time, but like working with them throughout a season, really shows you their decision making across a spectrum of experiences. And then you can like lean on those as you become the head coach or whatever. But then the second thing I would say is like being able to use other things outside of the sport, other sports, or other principles of business, of leadership, and trying to apply them to coaching. I think that, because I'm constantly fascinated with coaching, it makes that really a natural process. Is whenever I read something or think about it, I'm like, okay, how can I apply this principle of business to coaching? Is there a crossover at all? And so that's something for me that I'm constantly doing. And so with my guys, I realize that most guys don't have that kind of same passion, but for sure, recruiting wise, I'm trying to find guys that have that same like fascination with the game. Like, do they love to understand the details of the game? And so when they do, then we're two peas in the pod, and I'm trying to help them learn as much as they can because they want to.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's funny you talk about like NBA, high school, stuff like that, business. It doesn't matter where you're at in life. If you're winning and being successful, there it becomes a trend down the road. And I talk to a lot of coaches, and even our athletic director, you know, with other coaching positions. If you're winning, there's a reason, and it becomes a trend.
Yeah.
And so what are some people that you've looked up to, that you've worked with or worked under, that have helped you, and some trends that you've seen in other people to help them be successful that you've taken in your stuff as well?
Yeah. So obviously, I already mentioned my dad. That he would be number one. Then after that, I was lucky enough to work right out of college, or actually in college. I did graduate school at BYU, and worked with Dave Rose, who was the legendary coach there. We won 4 Mountain West Conference championships in my time there. My last year there as an undergrad, or as a graduate student, was with Jimmer Fredette when we went to the Sweet 16. I mean, we had a extremely highly ranked team. So being able to see him firsthand, and then eventually I came back to work for him as a director of operations. Just being able to see how he built his program, how he managed players, how he empowered players and his coaching staff, his ability to evaluate and then recruit guys is something that is a super valuable skill. And recruiting to BYU is a pretty unique, they have some constraints that are different than other places.
Yeah.
To see his ability to recruit there was very special. And then from there, I went to work at at Dixie State. Now it's called Utah Tech, in the WAC, and I was there through our transition from Division II to Division I, which was awesome experience for me to just see, like, number one, the high level of Division II basketball that there is, and then how that translates to Division I, and kind of the mindset you have to have going into a process like that. So any teams, we see teams doing it all over the place, that are transitioning from a lower level to a higher level, from like the West Coast Conference to the Big 12 or whatever. Like, that transition is definitely a big deal. And working with Coach Judkins down there, he was the winningest coach. He currently is the winningest coach all time in the state of Utah in college basketball. I mean, he's been winning like crazy. And one of the biggest things I learned from him was just consistency of who he was, coaching across all of his guys. Whether he was the best player or the last guy on the bench, he treated them the same. He challenged the best player. He challenged the last guy. He's definitely the model of consistency, and that's why he's won consistently. No question is that. And so then I also got the opportunity to work with Todd Phillips, who currently is the head coach at Utah Valley University. I worked with him at Salt Lake Community College, and he took over as the head coach as I came in to be an assistant. So I got to see him kind of establish culture and establish who he wanted to be and what he wanted to do. And all of that was super helpful for me in my current, role as taking over this program, a program that had been successful. And now, like, okay, how are we going to push it to that next level? So all those guys have been super impactful, not to mention the litany of assistant coaches that I've worked with that are super accomplished. Just hearing their perspectives, working with them closely and seeing how they operated. I mean, that experience was invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of Jimmer, what are some things that he did? It could be sitting in the gym, pulling a coach with them to shoot a couple hundred shots. Why was he so successful? And what are some things that you think some coaches did to help him that coaches that are watching this could help develop some players in their programs?
Yeah. I would say the number one thing that I learned from working with him was he has an elite mindset. Physically, we look at him, he's a 6'1", decent athlete, and no question super skilled, but that skill had come from his mindset, and he has a gift of ability to focus in the moment. From a sports psychology standpoint, he is exceptional in the ability to block out all of the distractions, to be able to focus on the process of the game, of the details of the game. He's one of those rare guys that are wired, that when we went on the road, he scored more. He played better. Like when we were at home and other guys are playing well, he was good, happy facilitating, but he just developing that mindset. And the crazy part about him was that he didn't play a ton as a freshman. He, like, in today's world, he is a transfer portal all-star right now, right?
Yeah.
He's gone. But like in the, and this is, not too long ago that he was playing and didn't play much as a freshman and came back in, after his freshman season and said, Coach, I'm going to work my tail off. And this next season, I'm going to be your starting point guard. And he told our coach that. And I was like, okay, let's see what he's got. And I mean, obviously the rest is history. The guy was unbelievable. And so as far as a development standpoint, he's super deliberate about skill development, all those things, but it is his mindset that is the difference maker for him, in my opinion. And I try to instill that with our guys of coming up with opportunities for them in games and in practice to take distractions and move them out of the way, take failure and move on from it quickly, and be able to focus on the next thing that's on their radar. And so that's definitely something I would say, for coaches, is that ability to be able to move on from disappointment and from distraction or pressure or whatever is a skill that takes development. It's not something that just happens overnight.
Yeah. So speaking of, kind of him switching that mindset, and it sounds like he enjoyed tough situations. Some of our players that don't enjoy those things, I try to tell them after basketball, put yourself in tough situations. If you're sitting there just enjoying Netflix, if you don't like reading, read. You've got to develop that mindset that will translate to the game to practice. Do you have some stuff that you do in your program, whether it's practice or anything like that, to kind of develop the winning mindset for guys?
Yeah. So I try to whenever a drill is over and like everybody would make losers run, I give guys an opportunity for one guy to step up and shoot a free throw to not have to run as a way of like, hey, we just lost, we screwed up, but can I move on to the next thing, right? And that is like we had other opportunities. One of our core values of our program is resilience, and so that ability to bounce back. Um, you know, one of the things we held as a standard for our program is if a guy turned the ball over or made a mistake, that they would sprint back on defense. And if they don't sprint back, they're coming out of the game. Like that's pretty straightforward as far as our mindset needs to be, that we move to that next thing. We move to that next thing. We're not going to take any time wallowing in self, misery because we made a mistake. Like, and that's something that's super difficult to develop. And um, the other thing I would say is just throughout a season, we hit some stretches where we lost a few games in a row, and like having our guys be able to continue to believe through those things and break through is something that was super helpful. Our guys eventually, we were able to break through, and like you said, we ended up beating the number 4 team in the country on our home floor. We beat them by 1, hit a free throw to win the game. And then, a few weeks, we win 5 out of 6 down the stretch and, end really, really well. And I think that's something that teams develop. It's not necessarily, they're just born with it. And I think as a coach, if you recognize that ability in players and if you've developed it in your players, it's super, super valuable. Like no matter how talented of a guy that you bring in, there's a lot of guys that don't have that. And so just valuing that in your program, I think is super important. And those guys that have developed that in your program, man, I got to have them back next season because they've been able to make that jump from like, I believe that we can do this to like, I know that we can do this. And that's super hard to develop.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's good stuff. Being at the Division I level, I was a Division I assistant as well, and we had 13 guys around. And I was just talking to a GA at Missouri State, and he kind of asked what route I thought he should go, and I said, you need to coach junior college because you're going to get to do everything. So what do you feel like coaching at the junior college level can help the rest of the world in the coaching realm?
Yeah, for sure that those opportunities to get your fingers in a whole bunch of stuff, that is super valuable, super valuable. And the other thing I would say is junior college is now the like prototypical of what Division I has become. Of teams are flipping over like crazy. I saw tweets the other day about some guys have 8 scholarships available right now, like for this next season. So whoever's doing that, like their ability to build culture in a very, very short amount of time is it's no longer it would be nice if we do that. It's the difference between like, can we make this jump that we need to do in this short amount of time? And junior colleges are prototypical of it because they do it every year. And so that's for sure to me the biggest thing junior college coaches can share is like, how do we bring guys in and get them bought in as fast as possible? How do we recognize their strengths and weaknesses? How do we make pivots according to the strengths of our guys that we have and not just do what we've always done? Like that. And I'd say it puts even more pressure on coaches now. It's like, I can't just rely on my guy that's been in the program for 4 seasons because they just don't exist as much anymore, because if they're really good, they're gone. And if they're not very good, they're gone. And so like, it's a big time challenge, but for anybody that's coming up the ranks, just hopping into junior college for some years to like, there's also some humility that comes from working in junior college of like, hey, I've been in programs where we're taking private jets to our games and flying back. And then I've been the bus driver driving to 16 hours to get us to our game. Like getting that spectrum of experience is super like valuable as far as your ability to come into a program and do whatever minor task needs to get done, as well as I remember they as director of operations at BYU, they had me in charge of our alumni event, so I have all the most important alumni of BYU basketball history come into this thing, and I'm in charge of emceeing the thing. Like so like getting all of that experience to me is really, really valuable. Getting different experiences in different contexts is really valuable.
Definitely. I think, also the recruiting side of things. At the end of the day, every coach wants assistants that have recruiting connections, and so
Yeah.
you're also able to coach AAU, all the other junior colleges in the league that you can take with you, and I think that's a huge bonus for anybody, especially as at a young age.
Oh yeah.
So how's the team looking for next year? You excited? You still got some guys coming back, and what's all that looking like?
Yeah, no, we're super excited about our group for this next season. We were lucky enough. I would say we were one of the few teams that actually played some freshmen, probably because I just had got the job, so I had to recruit some freshmen. I was able to get a few guys back from the previous team that had been gone to the national tournament, and so we had a good core of returners last season. But I played probably 5 or 6 freshmen this season, and I mean we're competing in a league where we lost in the championship game to Salt Lake Community College. They had 195 games of Division One experience on their team. I
Wow.
mean, more than most Division One teams have. Like,
Yeah.
and as far as sophomores, all of those things. And I played 5 freshmen, and we lost by 5 to them in the championship game. So like that experience that those guys got was super important to translate to this next season. And then just being able to have a better idea of who my guys are and who's returning and then what we need has been super helpful to trying to build this roster for this next season. And so, yeah, we're super excited. Obviously, every coach is super excited that their team is going to be amazing, and we'll see what happens. But like, I'm definitely excited about this next year's team and where we're headed.
Good. No, I know one of the big worries that you've mentioned already too, especially in coaching right now, is culture. And so, taking over a program where there's guys that are on the roster that you're now the coach of, and you're bringing a lot of guys in. How have you developed culture quickly with the whole new team?
Yeah. So the number one thing, obviously, the dictator of culture is me. Like my choices, how I operate, my ability to hold guys accountable. Then second is my assistant coaches. Like luckily, I was able to hire a fantastic assistant coach, and I actually had another assistant coach that was here with the previous staff who, within 2 months, got another junior college national D1 JUCO job, which is incredible. Like that, he got an opportunity like that, and so but I had a great assistant coach that his name's Brad Kitchen, coached at BYU, coached at Utah Valley. And that to me is the starting point is, okay, who's on my staff? Because my staff is the personification of what we're trying to do. Right. And so starting at that point to me is number one, finding credible leadership with me. And then number two, getting those guys back that you feel like will be difference makers that were on the previous roster. And then third, we got the other guys that we recruited in. They were obviously hearing our vision as part of the recruiting process. So they're hearing what our culture, will hope to look like. And then once we got them here, we went through a whole process of talking deliberately about what our culture would look like, what our mission as a program is, what are our core values, what are the standards that are going to be associated with it. All of those things were kind of the groundwork or foundation of it. And then I think the big thing that I learned through the season is that culture, once you have the foundation of it, is how do you maintain it and how do you empower your captains to personify that culture. That's something that we grew in for sure. We made some mistakes early and had some issues that we had to work through with our captains. And so this next season, having captains on my team that are all bought in on what we're trying to do and that I've taught them and helped them know how to impact these incoming guys to, hey, we don't do that around here, or hey, this is how we operate. We're trying to do this, this, and this. That's to me really important in trying to do culture. And I know that's a lot of stuff, but everybody has culture, and you can either be deliberate about it or it's just going to happen. And sometimes it goes off the rail. And so like, I know for sure that's kind of my chief job is I'm the chief cultural operator. I make sure that this thing is running and going smooth. And if there's issues, we got to deal with them. And so that's kind of how we establish culture. And for sure this next season, making our culture move to kind of that next level is what we're trying to do.
Yeah. No, I love the word empower. I think, especially now, the type of guys that are coming in this age group is they want to lead, and they
Yeah.
want to know that they've got a hand on what's going on. And so, I think that's why we had a successful year this year as well, because once I felt like our leaders were at the point where I could trust them, I was letting them lead stretching. Hey, y'all start the first drill.
Yep.
It needs to come from y'all. If it comes from me and I'm talking over the assistants all practice and all that, then I think that kind of gets they're just going to echo your voice out and stuff like that. And so, what are some things that you've let your guys lead, or stuff that they've just taken over in practice? Maybe they've got onto some players or stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And like the mission of our team is to become a team of leaders through
Yeah.
consistency, sacrifice, so that we can inspire our community and leave a legacy. That's our purpose. So helping them develop as leaders, to me, I take all of the preseason, and we work on like leadership and talk about leadership principles, and how we can influence other guys around us. And of course, it starts with them handling their own personal business, right? Them showing up on time, them going to class, making sure they're getting shots up, they're taking care of them, they know what the plays are. They're Once they do that, then they can influence the other guys on the team. And no question, I definitely see my role as a coach, especially early in the season, is I have to lead out, I have to be visible, I have to be intentional, and then as the season goes, give more and more and more of that opportunity of their input, and see who's developed their through their behavior and their leadership themselves, the trust of everybody, and the coaching staff included, and give them more and more power, more and more authority. Because I've seen it a bunch of where you have extremely heavy-handed coaches that their players don't know how to respond and make decisions for themselves. And that's, to me, we're teaching them decision making, and for sure it's going to start at the beginning with me helping them through basic and simple decision making. But then as they develop the habits, continuing to give them more and more opportunity. And so, like, specifics in the way we did that, I mean, we met with our captains consistently throughout the season to get feedback about, like, hey guys, how are things going? And one critical junction in the season was we went through a stretch of losing. I went to talk to my captains, and they gave me feedback. Coach, we're burned out. We're burned out. And I, as a coach, like, that pisses me off. I'm like, how can we be burned out? Like, how can we? This is the most fun thing in the world. How can we be burned out? We're 3/4 or 2/3 of the way through the season, we're burned out. And so it definitely took some humility and talking with my assistant and be like, okay, so what are we going to do? Taking a break, taking a couple days off, actually listening to them, made a huge difference. Eventually, we broke through, played better. We played better down the stretch, all of those things. And so, being able to listen to them, for sure, at the beginning of the season, you're the voice. But as the season goes, you got to more and more listen to what they think, and that just empowers them. It makes them want to follow you, and it makes them, instead of just being compliant, it makes them, proactive. It makes them want to make decisions on the floor confidently that, hey, I know my coach has got my back. If I make this decision and I screw up, hey, I know we've talked about it. He's got my back. We're going to head in the right direction.
Love it. No, this is good stuff. I mean, this is going to be very beneficial for a lot of coaches that watch. And I know for myself and you as well, if anybody needs help with anything, I know y'all could reach out to either one of us.
Sure.
Before we wrap up, is there anything that you'd like to share to the community or anybody watching?
First of all, appreciation for you guys and what you're doing. Like I said, coaching is just such a it's a super tough deal. Like, it's really, really hard. And I remember Coach Rose would always say, winning games is hard. Like, it's super hard. And there's very few guys that can just jump into coaching and just crush it, like, without a whole lot of mentoring, without a whole lot. I tell people it's like learning another language. Like, I speak Spanish, and when you first start trying to learn it, like, you're terrible at it. You're terrible at it. And so if that initial, like, challenge of coaching is discouraging for you, like, I understand that is part of this, like, coaching experience. Like, I coached AAU while I was coaching at Salt Lake Community College, and those first couple of years I was terrible. Like, and I mean, I grew up around coaching all my life. And I think I understand it, and I think, like, there definitely needs to be out of the gates for all of us is some like humility about it, but also some like, hey, I know this is going to be a long process to become the best coach that I can be. If I expect like, hey, this season I'm going to jump and hey, next year I'm going to be a Division I head coach, and then after that I'll be in the NBA Hall of Fame coach. Like it's going to happen in 3 years. Like that's the stuff that we laugh at our players about. Like, hey, you guys just want to jump 50 steps. And so for us as coaches, like it's definitely something that can take a lot out of you. And so having some other things in your life that keep you balanced, that keep you on track, is really important to be able to withstand the challenges of coaching and stick in this business, because otherwise, I mean, it will eat you alive. And then the other thing, just last piece of advice I'd say is like the coaching's hard enough. Make sure that you work with good people. Like work with people that respect you, work with people that want to make you better, that don't make you belittle you or things like that. Like you don't deserve that as a coach, and there's plenty of places out there that you can work where there are guys that will treat you right and help you become better. And so I know that there's some underground part of coaching that it's like, hey, you got to pay your dues by getting beat up by coaches that are going to tell you you're terrible and what. And I just think it's not productive. It doesn't make you better. Seek out guys that are great dudes that like love basketball and want to make you better, and then you'll grow. So those are my 2 cents. Take them for what they're worth.
No, that's awesome. Well, I hope you have a great weekend, and we appreciate you tremendously. This has been really good. So,
yep. Any way I can help, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys.